Well, hello there, humans, bees, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and today is an interesting kind of video. Welcome to the channel, by the way. If this is your first time here, it's going to possibly be a little bit dry for you. It's not the normal racy, sexy rubbish that I come up with. The heartbeat goes faster, you hear me talking in a breathy Aussie twang, a little bit reckless, a little bit rugged, a little bit fat under the collar. That's not nothing to do with today. I just got carried away there. Went all Hunter S. Thompson on us. What I want to talk to you about today is it's not what you know, it's who you know. I was lucky enough when I was in Minsk to cram and elbow an hour's worth of the map development team's time, and it was just incredibly valuable. And that allowed me to get a little bit more of a wide lens when I look at maps and the way they do things, and appreciate more all the little odds and angles. But the real thing it gave me was access to these guys, giving them a face and a name, and letting them know how much I care and how passionate I am about the game that they really love making. And that's good, because I was able then to put together a Q&A from you guys, the humans, got a whole heap of questions, and I put them to Alex, the CC liaison, the coordinator there for Wargaming, and he was nice enough to both ask the questions for me, get the answers, and translate them. So, without further ado, this is a map Q&A with the developers. Now, I'm going to read out the question, and then I'm going to give you a little surmise and a little bit of chat about what they answered. Firstly, in terms of design, when considering a new map, do you design them with a primary tank class in mind, and then factor in the other classes? And they said, we don't have one primary class. The main idea is to take a map that will be perfect for all types of vehicles. This is a high priority for us. Also, we keep in mind even small details in tank specs. For example, we design maps while taking into consideration differences between an Object 140 and a Pattern 48, etc. Gun depression, no gun depression, trying to find a little bit of something for everyone into one map. And I think that's one of the reasons why there are actually, and this is obviously me talking now, not the developers, one of the reasons why we find so much joy on some maps and dismay on others is quite often we don't get the tanks to the spots that the developers have basically put in for them, and we're not able to take advantage of that. And a big part of being successful in the game isn't just the tank you've got, but the terrain you're playing it on. And you can see here, I can't get shots off there on that 183 because I don't have the gun depression. He can't get shots off on me because he doesn't have the gun depression, and it absolutely ruins both of us. And those little bits and pieces are what makes the game great. Anyway, onwards and upwards, and this is something that I found incredibly surprising. What are the top 3 maps? Actually, I'll preface this. Do you have any plans to restrict mines to lower tiers? The answer was no, we don't. This is our players' favourite map with present gameplay setting. We want to make some small changes with the island, which is nice to know that they're looking at changing that island where the lighthouse used to be, and to make it more attractive for players in the way of a tactical advantage, so we maybe get more movement to a flank. Also, we want to release supremacy mode on this map, but all these changes won't be soon. Now, I found that very interesting because I don't particularly like mines. I find mines to be very focused around the center, but it ties in very nicely with the next question, which is what are the top 3 maps on each player, on each server, as voted by the player base? I was stunned by this. Castilla and Mines are in the top 3 on every server. In fact, they share the honours at number 1. On NA, Castilla is number 1. On Asia, Castilla is number 1. On RU, Mines is number 1. And EU, Mines is number 1. On NA, Rockfield is number 2. Crazy. Mines is number 3. On Asia, Mines is number 2. Middleburg is number 3. On RU, Winter Malinovka is number 2. Dead Rail is number 3. It's the only one Castilla didn't finish in, actually. On EU, Mines is number 1, Castilla is number 2, and Middleburg is number 3. So it just goes to show I don't know a whole lot of anything, because the player base votes for these things, and they love Mines. They really love it. Might have something to do with all the camping that goes on, but anyway, this is one of the great things about what's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander, because I would change Mines in a huge way, and yet the player base loves it. It is a massive success. Then we get to a really, really interesting thing. I asked, are there any plans to introduce a retro map in training rooms, like an old version of map, like Oasis Palms, that could be rotated by patch? And unfortunately, no, they don't plan to do that. And I've suggested that to them in Minsk, and I'll suggest it again whenever I get the chance, because I think that would be brilliant. But then we got to a really, really cool thing. Are there any plans to introduce weather, such as tornadoes, that affect view range in World of Warships? E.g. Canal on a sunny day is normal, but Canal on a storm, your view range drops by 10%, and a snowstorm on Dead Rail, it drops by 15%. Great ideas, all weather-based, changing the tactical environment, making it very, very difficult to work through, and that happens a lot in World of Warships with tornadoes and things. The answer was actually quite interesting, and it's quite likely tied into the platform, because of mobile devices not having all across the board strong cores, strong video options. Usually even, these are from Wargaming, usually even a small weather effect will decrease a frame rate and overall performance. So right now we are searching for solutions to this problem, because they would love to do weather effects, obviously. But the priority of this task is medium, because we have more things to do this year, which is pretty cool. When is a map too small for higher tiers? Basically, they have a look at the maps, and if it looks like it is too small for higher tiers, they will rework it and it won't be available, but they wouldn't give me the info on how they did that. And I think there's still a few state secrets, but anyway, there you go. But here is a real killer. Why was Mirage removed from tiers 8 and 10? Now, the actual sentence from the Wargaming guys is a little bit lost in translation, but it's hated. Mirage is one of the most hated maps. Right now, the players use only 20% of the map space for gameplay, basically around that waterfall area, I'm guessing. We failed with Supremacy mode on this map. Right now, this map is on the main list for being deleted from the game, and the same situation is actually with Copperfield. And of course, we are planning to replace them with new maps. Isn't that awesome? If they get rid of the NASCAR track that is Copperfield and the debacle that is Mirage, I hate that map because there's so little tactical work with it. People just sit on that sniper area there, and it's either, you know, a 7-zip or a zip 7. But Mirage hopefully gets gone and we get new maps. When you model parts of a map for gun depression, what kind of gun depression do you work off? 8 degrees or 7 degrees? They say we are trying to make maps with comfort places for -4 and -10 degrees. Chinese tanks showed us that we need to keep in mind their depression and 0 degrees of gun depression for the future maps and map changes. So I think that goes a long way towards explaining one of the reasons I struggle with those 3-degree tanks in the Chinese line. A lot of these maps are made for 4+ through to 10 degrees of gun depression, specific situations and areas. And when you're in a tank that has 3, 1, even 0 degrees of gun depression, then you're really at a disadvantage in terms of map design. It's not built for you. And I think that was borne out for me by the way the Chinese line really feels and it works. Will we see any HD modelling for maps, was the question. We really want to say yes, but we have to say not in the near future, because right now it's impossible. The design is all well and good, but it's actually getting the things to run is very, very tough, and it's very device oriented. And if you're in a mobile marketplace and you make a game that half the people can't play because it's too rich for their mobile of choice, then you're not going to live a very long and fruitful financial life. And this is another great question, which really shows why we talk about things in absolutes, but there are constraints within the designs of maps. How do you go about putting soft cover in certain places? There seems to be not enough soft cover, like bushes or trees, that we can down to be able to give us that advantage. Now, some of you might remember on the NA forums a long time ago, there was a Wargaming mod who came on and said that down trees gave no camo, and I said that's ridiculous. It does in fact give camo, and I made videos showing how this happens, and it's just nice to see it actually put out there into the lexicon now that it is 100%, you knock down a tree, you get camo from it. Because they say that in this answer. We have 3 types of soft cover: decorative, gameplay, and then a combination of decorative gameplay. When prototyping new maps, we place gameplay soft covers to the spots for TDs and for the spots where you can scout for the enemy teams for light tanks. Say, for instance, the brush on the middle hill in Dead Rail, and the bushes to my left here is on screen on Yamato Harbour where TDs hide behind. And that just goes to show that's the actual gameplay soft cover. We don't place any soft covers for heavy tanks because this makes usual heavy tank gameplay less interesting and more hardcore. So more armor based, more angling, more skill based, I guess. Soft cover hides some red and grey zones on heavy tanks, so it is harder to hit heavy tanks in bushes. Now, I've been preaching this in videos forever, but it's nice to know that they're hip to my ways, because I use that on heavies and TDs all the time, angling in soft cover, and you can't quite make out the hit zones. But anyway, I digress. We always keep in mind that many soft covers can cause the decrease of performance, so we are trying to find balance between the things. So what you're looking at there is, people would love more trees and more foliage, but the more trees and foliage you have, the more that your device has to render, and the harder it is to keep those performance levels high, make the maps look good, and make it easy for you to play without missing. And that's really, really important. And it's also one of the things I don't like about too much soft cover is there's so much soft cover in the PC variant, and you get far more camping behind 3 or 4 trees at once. Anyway, 1 or 2 falling trees can create new cover for the TDs or light tanks. We call this decorative gameplay soft cover, which I quite like. Can we hope, here's another question, great question, I think this might have been from Frank Kelly, can't remember. Can we hope for more non-symmetric maps, similar to Castilla with less mirroring? What that means is, if you look at most maps, if you look in the top left corner at the moment on Dead Rail, you can see that the maps are mirrored. There's a sniper spot in the area. We've got a TD up in the northeastern corner. There is a line across the middle where there is a ridge. There is a low area for heavies that is symmetrical. Everything is balanced. Asymmetrical would be very, very interesting because you wouldn't have the same balance. It would be very broken, and it would be a lot more interesting, I think, anyway. We really want to create non-symmetric maps, and very soon you will see our first try. Now, that was a real eye-opener for me. I can't wait to see a non-symmetric map in Blitz. I think it would be very, very exciting. Are there any chance of making maps? This is another question for Wargaming. Any chance of making maps with more water hazards put into forced direct play? We've tested this many times, but the results are weak. So right now, we don't want to try this on new maps. There is a small chance that we continue working on this in the future. And finally, are we going to get another night map in the near future? Yes, we are trying to make another night map, but it will appear in the game in the far future. So I hope you guys like that. I hope that you enjoyed that little bit of insight into the minds of the developers. I think it was bloody lovely of them to take the time to answer those questions. If you have more questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'm always happy to throw them back and see if we can't get a running dialogue going here, because let's face facts, these are the guys who can give you the best info, and they're also the guys who are the most interesting to hear from. They are passionate about it, and they have such a nuanced approach to map making. And if you're ever wondering what I mean by that, watch next time how gutted you are when you move up to take a shot from behind a rock or something along those lines, and just as the other tank would be coming into view, another rock appears just in front of them. Those kind of things don't happen by accident. Those sight lines are blocked off, so some areas can't be used by tanks to be overpowered farm positions that other tanks can't access, and they test those out laboriously. When I was in Minsk, I think it was 4.5 to 5 months per map of development time that they put in to test, to run, to render, to try it again, just to work things through. And that's the kind of passion and, you know, attention to detail that these guys really do show for their work. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm Bushka on Blitz. I love it. I love the game. I love you guys. Make sure you stick around and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, check out my new PUBG channel. It's a mobile gaming channel. It's not going to be just that game in particular. And leave comments there about any other mobile games you'd like me to review and such. But hats off, I'm not going to stop playing Blitz anytime soon. This thing is an absolute cracker, and Wargaming are really devoting a lot of resources towards improving it as we roll forward. Until next time, boys and girls, look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield.